Hi, Margaret. Here we are again on the pink couch, and today we're
Yes.
going to talk about influence. And you've been an influencer in the freelance community. How'd you get started? How'd you build that?
Yeah, so influence in the freelance community. I have been part of the freelance workforce for 15 years, the majority of my career.
Nice.
Um, Basically done 3 stints, and with each time that I've come back to the workforce, I've kind of had more appreciation for both the work itself and other people like me. So to get to your question of how did I develop the influence, a few years ago, a friend and I spotted a need for folks like us, for freelancers, and decided that we wanted to throw ourselves a holiday party. That we're the kind of folks who don't
Nice.
have a holiday party,
Nice.
or I always was able to angle my way into being somebody's date to somebody's holiday party.
That's why I like you, Margaret.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why I
come on,
like
come
you.
on.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we decided that we needed one for ourselves. So we threw it and reached out to folks like us, and were blown away when almost 250 people showed up to this thing. And this was maybe 4 or
beautiful.
5 years ago, something like that. So since then, I have continued to be really dedicated to the community, and have built relationships with other independent workers. I've had the opportunity to work with other freelancers and collaborate. But I would just say it's just been consistent action over all these years, and really a deep passion to support other people like me, to reach out to them and recognize that that they need community.
Yeah, and one of the things I hear as I listen to you talk is it's this sense of personal power as
Right.
opposed to positional power.
Right.
And that's
Absolutely.
where you've been able to influence the community and move it. And with APLS Group, which we've been involved with together, when we sponsored one of your events, I got this real sense of that sense of community, and that people really respect you and trust you, and that's all what influence is all about.
Yep.
It's about changing culture, it's about changing behavior, it's about changing the way you do things so that you can be more better, right? And I watched that in action. And you know that with APLS Group, we've been very much part of the freelance environment.
That's right.
And for 18 years.
Right.
And I think that that's the wave, right? So that's the wave of the future, and it's how do you influence and how are you able to create that sense of community when the workforce is different.
Yep.
People are not employees, and they're not necessarily contractors, and it's not full-time, and it's not, all those various. How do you influence as a leader, right? Because in your role, you're leading this. In my role, I'm leading. And what I realize a lot is that there are different motivations.
Right.
There's not a one-size-fits-all in terms of how you can influence another person to change that behavior or do something different.
Right. I think you said just a second ago that it's not about positional power. With freelancers, independent workers don't have titles. You can't. There's not these mechanisms that are in place by which you understand what the power structure is. So in this community, the way that I see it, it's really about. It's about that consistent action. It's about showing up. It's about working together. It's about proving a passion and a real desire to make a difference. Like it started with a kooky holiday party, and I was just totally blown away by the idea that there were so many other people out there like us who were who needed community, right? And so that inspired me to keep going and to kind of keep putting on events and finding ways to bring these folks together and let them know how valuable they are, and that that I see them, and that it's just a very powerful thing for people to be together and to see each other, right?
Yes. And the thing that I'm also hearing in this is I'm hearing this whole grassroots effort, right? So when you think about how individuals or groups or companies or nations the world influences. They influence by starting from that piece, right?
Right.
And so we sometimes think that it's one, it's the grandiose piece and not that initial idea that getting together and talking with a friend or a colleague and saying and getting this idea, and then how do we influence that?
Yep.
How do we influence? I watch it with my son. He's a football coach, right? And I watch how he's taken raw talent and how he influences the kids to become better, right?
Yep.
And you see it in all different pieces, right? In large companies, small companies, nonprofits, individuals, because what influences us a lot of times is what's going on for us, what's working or not working. So I might have had a bad experience, and so therefore I want to change that experience and do something different.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we've talked about in the past, but trust.
Yes,
right.
It's huge.
That's
huge.
kind of that's the real mechanism that influence, or the power structure of influence is built on, which is a really beautiful thing. It's not again, it's not about titles. It's not about levels in an organization, but
absolutely.
There's something that we were talking about before we sat down on the pink couch. And that was about how to influence a situation.
Yes.
And so now I'm going to put you on the spot and say,
okay,
well,
okay.
how does one do that? Or
well, as you know, with me, it starts with me. And in terms of what's the behavior that I'm doing that's either helping or hindering that situation. How do I influence? How do I motivate? How do I excite people? Well, I have to remember that it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? So every interaction that I have with somebody is different. And so I influence based on, I think, touching people from a relationship perspective, caring about them, right? I think that we're in this 8 to 12 second world now with more like 8 seconds, like you get my attention for that period of time only. And so how do I grab you at hello so that you want to have the conversation with me, right? That you want to be influenced, that you want to even listen to what's going on in some way. And I think it's very doable. If I was to say what's the tip, the tip to me is to influence, I have to listen. I have to listen to what the conversation is, and then I need to make sure that I share what I think and be open to what the other person has to say, and then we can influence. Because in numbers, and then we ask other people to join in that we know have the same talents or different talents that can help us move and drive something. I watched a video that showed the mayor of Bogota, Colombia, who was able to influence how people drive and behave based on having 400 mimes come in and do embarrassment, because in that culture, people get, shaming is huge, right? And so he was able to, in 1 year, drop the rate of deaths based on cars by 25%.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So we were talking about influence in the freelance community, which is really kind of a non-traditional environment. But are the tip that you just shared, or kind of what we've been talking about in summary, how does it apply to the corporate environment, to government, to any sort of professional situation you might find yourself in?
Yeah. It's very, very, very important. And it's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes,
it really
always,
is. And
always.
I
agree.
And I would look forward to the next time that we can have a conversation on the pink couch.
I do too.
Okay.